Hey, it's truth time. You're the TruthWire. That's where you get your words. Jimmy, what's with this new thing on the left, in the studio where we're on the left? What is that? That's just...
You did admit you were part of the left.
That's the Twitter format in portrait mode. So the stream looks better on Twitter now.
Oh, okay.
And we have to look at it? Can we hide it?
Yeah, and I was trying to explain that to you before the show, but you got up and walked away.
Because I don't want to hear what you have to say. Bad Bunny rules. He kicks ass. I can hide it yourself. I hid it myself. But listen, guys, do us a favor out there. I don't know what's going on Twitter, but it doesn't look like it's kind of... Are we live on Twitter? Because it doesn't look... It says we're live, but then I look down my thing, and I don't see the stream itself. Who knows, guys? Everything's kind of crazy. We were talking yesterday. We want to make more of a commitment to come back and do these shows as much as possible. We have to do our part, but we need your help to do your part, and that's to share this stuff like the Dickens, because we're still demonetized and sanctioned and all that stuff. It is an unfair game, but so be it. That's the world we live in. That's the arena we are fighting in, but we're going to keep fighting. Of course, I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella. And we're going to piss a lot of people off today, I think. I don't know. I think
we piss people off every day.
I think more than usual, because I think, when this whole Super Bowl show happened, a lot of people who don't live in the U.S., who have just jumped into the whole anti-woke thing, started just saying how unpatriotic it was. A lot of commentators from Russia, or who live in Russia, expats usually, were saying how awful this is. And how it looks so unpatriotic, why do you have some guy singing in Spanish? And I thought that was weird, because I don't know if they know anything about the country they're residing in, but there's a lot of languages that are spoken in the multiple regions of Russia. There's a lot of languages that are spoken in a lot of places, and the United States doesn't have an official language. So there's a lot of miseducation, I think. And it's not even about what, for me, you know, I don't watch football, you know, like I used to watch the Super Bowl with my family just because you eat, you drink, you hang out with family. And the whole American thing is to watch the game. And usually most of us who don't care about football watch it for the halftime show and see who's performing. And that's really all we care about. Okay. Like that's what you grow up with in the United States if you're not a sports person. And the thing is, it's kind of taken like the dialogue around this is so confusing because it's like, we know that the people who own the football basically are the worst of the worst. They're Zionists. They have they're elites. They have a lot of money. They don't really care to do anything good with that. I mean, Pasta, you can talk about that more so even than I can. So a lot of people are pointing out that, you know, football is already tarnished because of that. And you could say that. But I think this whole immediate knee-jerk reaction to just hate whatever is considered left or liberal, or what is considered, you know, this woke culture, without actually looking at how you're being manipulated, it's just really stupid. And frankly, choosing this entire thing, as the United States has kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro, as the United States is attempting to Gazify Cuba, to starve Cuba into submission, preventing other countries from allowing it to get oil so it can continue to survive, as it's trying to bully the world into submission, bully much of Latin America into submission. There's like, it doesn't make sense. There's like this weird paradox, because you're complaining about this guy who's Puerto Rican, which by default makes him a US citizen, because Puerto Rico is a de facto, not fully, but pretty much almost a US colony. It's not that at the Hawaii level, they still have their flag, they still have their languages, their customs, but it's going in that direction. Yep. And he's talked about it a long time. He's talked about the gentrification, the investors going in there, buying up all the properties, the people being pushed out of their homes. You know, we have a lot of Puerto Rican people in Florida. Some of my family members are Puerto Rican. Like, I grew up with Puerto Ricans. Like, it's this whole thing where some people see it valuable that they are American citizens, but others are fighting for the independence of Puerto Rico. And so there was a talk about this flag being waved, and that flag that was waved was once banned because it was the pro-independence movement in Puerto Rico. And so I see what's happening in Cuba, what the United States is trying to do to Cuba, what they're doing to Venezuela. And you have all these people complaining, why do we have a show in Spanish? We speak English, we're Americans. And then you had, of course, Turning Point USA doing their own show with Kid Rock, which was the cringiest shit I have ever seen in my life. I'm like, if you want to lose the youth, if you want to lose the majority of people that are under the age of 45, you did it. Good job. Good job. You've done it. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it outside of the optics of it being racist and all of that, you know, for me, it was more about just how they're trying to divide people. There's this divisiveness in the US, and it's only going to come back at us. So yeah, just want to hear what your take is on the beginning of all this. Yeah.
Well, when I put the halftime show on, I saw all these, you know, beautiful Latin women dancing. I was like, how dare they do this? Like, I think that a lot of you people like Jack Posobiec and all you other idiots from Real Voice America, Bannon, Lindsey Graham, Donald Trump, I think you need to admit for a second that you might be gay, right? That's something you might have to admit. But in all seriousness, I mean, the fact that they had this show, and yes, we will get to the Megyn Kelly breakdown, because that was the cherry on top. The fact that they even, you know, broadcasted and decided to do a separate show, fam, not only is it divisiveness, because we saw inside bars and inside restaurants, some owners were putting that one on and then having fights with the patrons that were like, why are you doing that? Why are you playing? It just shows you how racist we are as a society that they think that's okay. And then Megyn Kelly went further to prove also as well that we have a very xenophobic, racist society. And I think we need to address that. But it also tells me that the ruling class is doing very well. In their attempts to socially engineer society, they have gotten you thinking about the immigrant, right? Rather than the people pulling the strings, rather than the nation state of Israel, rather than, the way the Europeans are still going along, what's happening in Ukraine, Russia, along with the Americans who just approved the sale over there. You're looking at the person across from you, the immigrant, the most lowest person on the totem pole, and you're blaming him for all the societal problems. They have really got us in a bind right now. When people were asking me about the state of election integrity, I'm part of this group with Kelly Lane. We are so far behind the 8 ball, fam. But we're so far behind the 8 ball when it comes to dealing with race, religion, people who are differently than us. I mean, who think differently than us. I mean, we are in a serious problem right now, and I think it's a time of acceleration. And they've gotten people, the masses divided more than anything else. I mean, really, the fact that TPUSA even had another event in itself just shows you how petty they are. And really, to tell you, it exposes all of you out there who went along with this. Even if you like the people involved, this was stupid because Bad Bunny, who doesn't speak any English, I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you people? We're supposed to be a melting pot, right? Go read what it says on the Statue of Liberty again, and then tell me what you say about Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl show. A real big fail for society, fam. A real big fail for society. Once again, I don't even think there's an avenue of finding a commonality with a lot of people out there. They are so damn fucking racist out there that they really need to go to a therapist and check themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, we know who the problem is. It's not the immigrant, it's the ruling class. Please go ahead.
Well, more than racist, Pasta, I think that's what is easy to see, but I think the real issue here is fear, right? There is this fear that, and this is what's been talked about before, like the great replacement. We're being replaced. There's more of these people here now. They're speaking, Spanish. And the thing is, Bad Bunny, Benito, he speaks English. Like, his mother was an English teacher. Like, this is, like, he speaks English. The music he sings is popular in Spanish. That's it. We have a lot of international artists, Shakira, you have Jennifer Lopez, you've had Mark Anthony, you have all these people. The problem is, this is coming from the right? That he has been vocally political. And most of these artists are not vocally political. This is something we criticize a lot about celebrities, that they're not really political. They don't take sides. And during the ICE, the problems that have been happening with ICE, and during several things that Trump has done, he has been vocally against what ICE has been doing. So much that he refused to perform in the United States during his whole tour. He's only performing in Puerto Rico, Latin American, South, Central, North, and South, but not the United States, and in parts of Europe, and I think Australia, like several parts in Asia, in the East. But he refused to perform in the United States as an FU to the US government. When you're an artist that's political, that's going to polarize a huge portion of people, which is why a lot of people who are artists are not political, because they know that that's going to pigeonhole them on some place. They see themselves as a business first. And so what I think this backlash is coming from is the fact that this guy was the number one guy played on Spotify. And I can tell you that a lot of white people who don't know Spanish listen to him 100% just because they like his music. I can also tell you that a lot of people in Russia and the Middle East and Latin America listen to US American music, from Elvis to Bon Jovi to Michael Jackson to every American artist you can think of from the United States, and they don't care that they don't know English. I can't tell you how many times I've done karaoke in Russia where they can perfectly sing a song by an American artist, but they have no idea the words they're saying. And that's because nobody cares about that. If the song is good and the culture that we've exported is usually extremely popular in the United States. You have people who will listen to our music and who will love it and repeat it no matter what, no matter if they understand what it's talking about or not. And so we expect other people to take our music in English and say it. When our artists go to other countries where they don't speak the language, they're welcomed. But if there is somehow the opposite, it somehow becomes a thing, because football has been described as the quintessential American sport. And in many ways it is. It is very just inside the United States. You don't have people outside of that, of the US don't know what football is. They think it's soccer, like what we know as soccer, and rugby in the UK. But football, as in like how it's done in the US, is, you know, a very US American thing. And so I think it really hit hard on a lot of people who have refused to acknowledge the reality of change in the US, how new generations are more multicultural, how new generations are, you know, think differently than them. And I think this is as much of a generational thing as it is a cultural thing. It is an age thing, actually. If you talk to the majority of young people, they're not going to care that there's a guy that's singing in Spanish at the Super Bowl. Like, it's normal for them. This is what they've grown up with. But a lot of these people, like Megyn Kelly and others, are so out of touch with what actually is the United States of America, like what it is now, what it has been for a long time. And they're scared of that change. And that's why you have different perspectives. You have the conservative view, which is like, we don't want change. We want things to stay the same. And we want to maintain things how they were way back when we were at the top and there was nobody else there. And yeah, you can call it racist, but I think even more than racist, I think it's just that's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of hesitancy to change. And it's coming from a place to, as you said, blame the other, because they don't want to acknowledge that a lot of the things happening that they see as negative are happening because of the very government that is in power right now. And it's not just about Trump. It's literally, of course, about our entire root of our government, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to talk about real quick, family, before we get started.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of have gotten started, but this is one of the things that I want to be lost. And supposedly there was a raid on Rumble from AM Wake Up. If you guys are coming over from AM Wake Up, thank you so much. Good to see you. Blank State, great to see you over here. This is the TruthWire. All the links down below to help us out are always in the description, so you can help out independent media by just throwing us a few bucks if you were there here and there. This is Orlando, who made a tweet, but this is about, fam, I love to see this. Is Patriots player Mark Hollins, I called him Max Hollins. Mark Hollins arrives barefoot and in handcuffs at the Super Bowl in protest against ICE and its criminal treatment of immigrants and American citizens. Take a quick look. Here he is, Hollins. He walks in barefoot. Yeah, I thought we'd see a lot more of that in San Francisco. We didn't see as much, but that was kind of cool that I thought he did that. I'd like to see some cleats going on. I will tell you this: the majority of people on the NFL, the Twitter, right? Hello to Gabrielle coming in. Freedom, thank you so much. A lot of football players were really complimenting, Bad Bunny. I think it's JJ Watt made a tweet, says, this guy played. I didn't understand one word he said. Still awesome. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that was a great comment. Like, okay, you don't have to understand what's going on. It's music, right? Music has its own language. You can feel, you can listen, there's rhythm. It really was a shame that they went after, this whole Bad Bunny situation the way they did, but they exposed themselves. Here's my questions to you, fam. Okay? Because we talk about, and I don't know if we're on the same page, because we talk about what do the conservatives or the populist right or the Trumpers or whoever you want to label them, right? What do they fear about Latin Americans in the U.S.? Because when you say power, I only see like gusanos in America, Latin Americans who have kind of completely been completely all for the empire and power. I don't see anybody really obstructive in power, right? But what do they really fear? Because I don't believe they fear these people having power. I believe that a lot of these conservatives feel the acceptability from a lot of Americans here that they're one of us is what they fear more than anything. You know what I'm saying? They feel like they're almost losing their place in society because we're accepting of immigrants. Please give us your opinion. What do you think they fear most?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, so now there's generations of Latin Americans, right? Because if you look at the beginning of immigration in the United States, it was a lot of like the Dutch, Irish, Germans were the first, and the Italians came. And when the Italians came, as you always talk about, they received a lot of backlash, a lot of hate, a lot of comments about how they were dark and they were this and they were that. And then the Puerto Ricans came, and West Side Story, talks about all of this throughout the musical. And so when as all of this has happened, the waves, the Chinese, the Japanese, all of that, the latest waves are the ones that are going to be most criticized. And the thing is, there is an underlying racist element to that, because you never see the problem with Ukrainians when they were ushered in here for that. You don't see the problem with Israeli flags being waved, and that's another hypocritical element. It's always the Somalians or the Latinos or something that there's a problem with. And I think there's so much of that cultural influence now that is such a bedrock of the United States that they think that what the United States was once in the 1950s is no longer. And they're right. It's not. It's not going to be, because there's been changes. There's been changes. And that's only natural to a country that, number one, where people settled, where there were already other people that spoke other languages, where there was conflict, where there was slavery, where there was all these things, where there was multiple people from coming. And this was supposed to be the place where you could come and make your dreams come true and get the American dream and all of that. So you can't have that and then be angry that that's what it came out to be, because that's what it's come out to be for a lot of people. And a lot of this fear is coming from the fact that, for example, there's a lot of people that if you're somebody that's looking for a job, it's better if you know how to speak Spanish, because it's a very popular language in the United States right now. People encourage you to speak Spanish. They encourage you to know the language. It's coming from a place of, now you see Latinos in not just positions of restaurants or service. You're seeing Latinos be in positions of not necessarily power, which I agree with you on that, but in positions of middle class, in positions of upper middle class, and in positions where they're holding education and they're American. I like, how can, there's a big difference between a Latin person that is an American and a person that's from these countries. Like, we behave different, we're different, we have different cultures, we're just different because we're also American. And so I can speak to that 100%, because some of my family members, my siblings, don't know Spanish very well at all. And it's different. It's a different kind of dynamic. You can't tell these people who are first or second generation or even third generation Latinos that they're not American. Because they're as American as apple pie, and apple pie comes from the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Everything that we consider American in the United States comes from somewhere else. That's the thing. And this is why a lot of people make fun of a lot of the fears of these conservatives, because our culture in the United States is a culture that's borrowed from literally everywhere else. Pizza from Italy, burgers from wherever, like fries from France, like tacos from Mexico. Like, how are you going to now pigeonhole yourself to say, no, we need to go back to just what Megyn Kelly said, just fried chicken? Well, who made fried chicken? Who did it? Black people in the South, they were the ones that brought about that fried chicken. I mean, these are realities. And the thing is, people get really offended when you talk about this stuff. They get really they feel personally attacked, and they need to not feel that way, because it's just a reality. And then it becomes a screaming match of oh, but you're calling us racist. You're calling us this. How are we going to have a conversation? if you're saying this, and it's like, then I don't know, like then don't act like it, I guess. I think for some people that's what it comes across. Maybe that's not what they mean, but that's, I think, what it comes across to me is like you're fearful of these people because you feel like you're not the top dog anymore. You feel like you wanted to be above them in society, and now a lot of these people are your equals. And I do think there's a layer to that, you know.
Fam, I will take a beautiful Latin woman who loves to cook, loves to dance, loves to sing, is passionate about everything, and be below her. I don't even have to be her equal. How about that? I mean, this is just so stupid. What are they thinking about? Oh, he's my equal. And I mean, come on. I mean, this is so dumb, guys. I mean, this has always been our culture. We've always been a melting pot. You know, our ancestors don't come from here. We're not indigenous to this land. What are you so afraid of? I mean, they made you. I highlighted. I started a comment in the chat, and I think it really hits it on the nose because I think that, and you know what? Let's bring it up right now, real quick. Right here. People are struggling and don't know who to blame. Our state propagandists like Megyn Kelly are issuing orders on who to blame. Some folks are following orders instead of thinking. And the same thing could be said about Donald Trump and his whole administration and the Steve Bannons and everybody else who's got a big following out there. They're telling you who to be mad about because they don't want you looking at them. That's what's going on. Let's get into the folder. Let's just get rolling. So go ahead, because we're gonna spend a lot of time on this, I know. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so just for the facts, right? Why is this guy here? Nobody likes his music. The dude was #1 guy played on Spotify. He's extremely popular, especially with young people. But this article talks about how a Florida congressman is calling for federal action, guys, following Bad Bunny's halftime show during Super Bowl 60, which aired on NBC and its affiliates. Randy Fine posted on social media that he is alerting the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, accusing the Grammy-winning artist of airing what he described as inappropriate content during the live broadcast. Fine wrote that the performance was, quote, illegal, and said he is urging the FCC to review the broadcast, including potential fines against the NFL, NBC, and the artist. Bad Bunny, whose real name is Benito Antonio Martino Ocasio, headlined the Apple Music Super Bowl 60 halftime show on February 8th. And he's the first solo Latino artist to lead in the halftime stage. We all know it was entirely in Spanish. He brought on Lady Gaga. He brought on Ricky Martin. There were other people there that are popular that were just, there. But one of the things that I want to point out that Bad Bunny said here is extremely important. During the set, he performed a portion of the song called Lo que le pasó a Hawaii, what happened to Hawaii. And that song draws the comparison between Hawaii and Puerto Rico's histories. One of the lyrics that's in the song is Lo que le pasa a Hawaii también puede pasar aquí. What happened to Hawaii can also happen here. He's talking about Puerto Rico. And so a lot of people know it's not even interpretation. It is an anti-colonial interpretation because, Hawaii was taken by the United States. And so was Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico still maintains a little bit of independence, not fully. I mean, Puerto Ricans, their votes don't count, which is, again, I think another travesty. And so he's commenting on that stuff. And I think that that's exactly what's pissing people off because they don't like to hear, I don't know, Pasta, I'll speak for myself, but whenever I've talked to somebody that's largely anti-immigrant, that's largely, America first, in that context, they don't want to hear about what the United States did 300 years ago to the Native Americans. They don't want to hear about slavery. They don't want to hear about that stuff. Like, they don't want to talk about that stuff. They just want to say, well, that happened a long time ago. It's not, it's not our problem now. America's this now. We have it. They don't want to go there. So it's kind of like, it makes people uncomfortable when others point it out. And so I think it's ridiculous that Randy Fine is trying to fine all these people for a performance that was not any more explicit than Janet Jackson's, than any of the other performances we've seen from J-Lo or Shakira, from any of these other performances. The issue is that he is a vocal person. And when you're vocal and you piss someone off, like, you know, they don't like it. Now, of course, the liberals are coming on and they're exploiting this whole situation. I've seen AOC and others who are absolute trash trying to like exploit this to make themselves look like, you know, they're better, like they're supportive, all this stuff. But like, really, it's just dividing people more. And it's so dumb. And the whole time that I've been talking about this, I've been saying, how are all these people spending so much time on this and not looking at what the United States is doing to these Latin American countries, which is also going to cause more immigration and more people to come to the United States? Because after what we do to their countries, the least you can do is expect them to come here, because you're destroying their countries, you're sanctioning people, you're kidnapping presidents, you're coupping governments, you're stealing their resources, and then you're angry that they've come here, built another life, and are now, you know, singing about what you did to them. Like, I don't understand what our government did to them, but what many of you don't want to talk about, that many of you don't want to pretend happened.
And a lot of similarities to what's going on with the whole Somali community. This whole Somali fraud thing was brought about because they wanted to manufacture consent. Now you talk to somebody, hey, you know, we bombed Somalia 160 times since Trump became president. Good. They're a bunch of fraudsters and they're stealing our stuff. This is why they do this stuff, right? This is why they also right now are hating on Latin America. They're doing this because they want to have more permission from you, consent from you to go into these Latin American countries. Right now, I don't know, but we heard, fam, and Gloria sent this to us, right, about the fact that El Paso, Texas airport might be shut down. Something's going on. They're labeling a no-fly zone. And I think the fact that they've been kind of harping the fact that, you know, Mexico's cartels and the government doesn't want to work with the United States to fix it. Once again, they're going to manufacture more consent to go ahead and get involved and get more military interventionism from America. I mean, we've forgotten, I guess, already what happened with the whole situation in the fact in Venezuela, we were blowing up boats left and right, extrajudicial murder over there. This is breaking news. The FAA has issued temporary flight restrictions that has grounded all flights from Texas El Paso International Airport and nearby airspace, including parts of southern Mexico, for 10 days. So pretty much what's going on is it looks like, fam, that a lot of the rhetoric that we hear, because, you know, a lot of the times when they're speaking and the media goes along with their talking points that they're given from the ruling class, they tip their hat on what they're going to do. The Bad Bunny Super Bowl, let's get another TPUSA situation, is also about manufacturing consent and getting permission to go ahead and get involved more Latin America when it comes to our interventionism. And there's a lot of things on the table. We're talking about Peru right now and their lithium. We're talking about Nicaragua and getting rid of the Sandinistas and what's going on in Honduras, where they seem to be switching over. So there's a lot at stake for the ruling class right now. So they have to move public opinion. And by doing so, they just hate on Latin Americans. And that's what they're doing right now. It's almost like they picked Bad Bunny on purpose. This is all a setup on purpose to make sure that there's more divisiveness going on.
Yeah, more hatred towards like the people, because all these flags were waved, including Haiti's and Cuba's and Venezuela's.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a lot of the times, a lot of these artists leave out Haiti, they leave out Cuba, they leave out Venezuela because of everything. No, he said every single Latin American country, including Guyana. So let's look at what Donald Trump said, right? Because again, this is an effort to divide people. And ironically, the whole message of that halftime show was we're better together, we're better united, which I thought is what, you know, a lot of these conservatives wanted. They wanted to unite, they wanted to stop fighting. But I guess it's not if this guy says it. So
he said, my Trump voice?
Yeah, please.
All right, put it on up, Jayme. The Super Bowl halftime show is absolutely terrible. One of the worst ever. It makes no sense, an affront to the greatness of America, and doesn't represent our standards, Jayme, you're going to scroll, of success, creativity, or excellence. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying. He said this and said that. And the dancing is disgusting, especially for young children that are watching from throughout the USA and all over the world. This show is just a slap in the face to our country, which is setting new standards and records every single day, including the best stock market and 401k in history. There's nothing inspirational about this mess of a halftime show. And watch, it will get great reviews from the fake news media because they haven't got a clue of what's going on in the real world. And by the way, the NFL should immediately replace its ridiculous new kickoff rule. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump. And by the way, I have one last thing to say. China. Go ahead, fam.
Everything that guy just says bullshit. Thank you.
I mean, way to be divisive. But this is what Donald Trump thrives on. This is what all politicians thrive on, whether it's Donald Trump, when it was Joe Biden, whatever. They thrive on dividing people, right? An affront, a slap in the face. Not at all. I mean, I don't see any difference from what other artists have done in the way they've moved, in the way, again, a lot of artists have come on there and done things. It was a lot more interesting, to be honest, than some of the recent shows I've seen. There was a lot of theatrical production that went into it that I could appreciate. There was a very inclusive nature of it. It was pretty much, I think it was, in a way, a fuck you to anybody that's anti-immigrant. And that's why so many people are so butthurt, because it was pretty much like, these are all the Latino people. We're here. We're taking over, you know, like in that sense of like, we're here, like we're not going away. Like that's sense. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, you know, and I want to represent to you what that looks like, because Megyn Kelly does really exemplify the typical person that this would make uncomfortable. And before we get there, though, I want to point out a couple things. And I wrote this whole long thing. I'm not going to read it because I pretty much just said everything else. But the Don Roe doctrine, right, is ongoing. The United States calls Latin America its backyard, and then expects not to have people like who are from there also there, like, or have the repercussions of what it means. Don't forget that while all these people are angry that this guy's speaking Spanish, the United States thinks that they have jurisdiction on what Cuba should do, what Venezuela should do, what Mexico should do. That the United States thinks that they can decide what goes on in the Americas, because America includes North, Central, and South America, not just the United States. And so it's beyond hypocrisy to think that that's okay. And again, like, how is it un-American when literally nobody else cares about football except in the US? Like, nobody cares. I'm right now in Peru. Nobody was watching this shit. Like, people knew about it, but nobody was watching it. And I can assure you, nobody was watching it in Russia unless to hear, you know, the reactions as to what was happening. Nobody really. It's an American thing. It's an American event. So it's not un-American. It's not patriotic. Football is part of that culture, right? And in the US, especially if you live in Los Angeles, if you live in New York, if you live in Orlando, Miami, any of these major cities, you can go find an Indian restaurant. You can go find a Chinese restaurant. You can go find, what do you think that is? How do you think these things appeared? They appeared because all these people from all these countries came into the United States, built businesses, and are now, you know, giving a bit of their culture, their heritage. But they're Americans and they love the United States. One of the things that these people said is that he hates America, right? Why does he hate America? I've been told I hate America by a lot of you know, these people. And we don't hate America. I love America. America is everything. North, south, east, west, central. But no, I don't hate the United States is what they mean. What I don't like is what our government is doing. And what our government is doing, not just to people abroad, but to people in the United States. And what our government is leaving for the next generations, which is basically war and destruction and little else. And that's what I don't like. That's what we should criticize. The country, if you want to go back to the revolution, was built on people who didn't want to be under the burden of an empire that was controlling them. And they've lost all semblance of that, because that's exactly what we live in now. We're living ever more so closely in a very neo-feudalist society that is getting ever the more technocratic, ever the more surveilled. We're losing all our rights. We're killing US citizens, and we're killing people abroad, and then crying about the repercussions of what that means and how the rest of the world views us. If you don't understand the connections, then you're not serious about solving the problem. We always talk about our foreign policy related to the border issue, to immigration. So we don't hate America. We love America because we want to fix it. We want to help it. It's like an alcoholic or a drug addict. You don't hate them because you're barring them from the drug. You're trying to help them. And that's what people don't understand. Criticizing your government when it's doing wrong is actually a sign of caring.
Patriotism.
It's not a sign of it's not a sign of being unpatriotic.
It's actually a sign of patriotism, fam, when you're being able to call out the enemies of the state, the foreign or domestic, right? It says that in the writing, and yet people want to ignore it. And it does suck. I've said this before, that I never thought we would hit the level of hero worshiping we had under Barack Obama. But when Donald Trump came along, those people said, hold my beer. And they're still trying to, go along and defend him. The Epstein situation is kind of weird as well, because it wasn't the stuff that he was named about in this particular drop that was really bothering. It's the fact that he's still protecting these people, right? And a lot of people look at it, he's protecting the people on behest of Israel. You know what I'm saying? He's protecting those who used our children as currency, and that's the big no here. Fam, are we getting ready to get to Megyn Kelly? Because I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, I know.
Again,
one more thing.
Let's go ahead.
One more thing about before the Megyn Kelly, I do have to point out the Israel stuff, right? The Epstein stuff. They're not talking about all this stuff. They're talking about this guy. They kind of want to. Was it Pam Bondi that was like, we're done with that. We're moving away from that. Yeah. We're not talking about, or was it Carolyn Levitt? I don't know. They're like the same person.
They're interchangeable.
They really are. But like, you know what I mean? Like this is like a lot of these people in politics, both on the right and left, or Democrat and Republican, are involved in the Epstein files. And these people are so busy just talking, getting angry about this guy. Like, the audacity. Israel in Mossad are embedded inside our country, and you're hyper focused on this Puerto Rican guy. Like, it's ludicrous. And I point this out about Cuba, but it was the most super watched halftime show of all time with 135.4 million views. So you can't say that it wasn't popular. And I can guarantee you it was probably more popular than that, because most people don't watch TV and probably watch it online.
I couldn't, I don't know if I'm blocked or whatever from Jack Basovic, but, they're trying to speak a different language. They're trying to say that the TPUSA was so much, in other words, like, I think it was, I can't remember what network it was, TPUSA maybe it was, getting almost 1 million followers from a couple hours before to a couple hours after their halftime show. That was one of the most watched streams on YouTube. And people were like, yeah, it might be more watched on YouTube, but it wasn't watched on national television where the majority of the watching comes from. That Bad Bunny show killed it. And a lot of people, way more people watch that show than the TPUSA show. But it's kind of crazy to see people go back and forth in that kind of rhetoric, trying to one up each other. They just continue to tell the lie out there. And it is sad.
Fam, go take it away with Megyn Kelly.
Well, talk about unhinged over here. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people share this point of view. Once again, I think a lot of people are confused about what to think. They know their life sucks. They know they're being screwed. They just don't know who's screwing them. So when you say it's the Muslim or the Latin American person who's screwing you, and you're told that, if you can't think for yourself and you don't have the ability to see what's going on, you will believe what you're told to believe. So take a look at Megyn Kelly when she was going back and forth. And I think that Fiorella pointed out one of the most important things about this whole thing. Megyn Kelly was able to make Piers Morgan look representable, which is one of the most hardest things to do nowadays. That's how crazy and unhinged she was. Watch this clip of them going back and forth, and for her to just start screaming about what's going on in Great Britain. Go ahead, take a look.
I'm sorry, Piers, but to get up there and perform the whole the whole show in Spanish is a middle finger to the rest of America. Who gives a damn that we have 40 million Spanish speakers in the United States? We have 310 million who don't speak a lick of Spanish. This is supposed to be a unifying event for the country, not for the Latinos, not for one small group, but for the country. We don't need a Black national anthem. We don't need a Spanish-speaking, non-English performer, and we don't need an ICE or America hater featured as our primetime entertainment.
Okay, what is the national language, officially the national language of the United States of America?
I mean, English. And there's been a push for many years to make it an official,
you don't have one.
Documented thing.
You don't have one.
If you would have let me finish my comment, I would have pointed that out, but people have been pushing to make it official.
Okay, so you're trying to make official.
This attitude that you have right here is why you in Great Britain have lost your culture. You ceded your culture to a bunch of radical Muslims who came in and took over, and now it's gone. We're not allowing that here, whether it's Hispanic, whether it's Muslim. It's not happening in the United States of America. That's why President Trump was elected. And whether it's Bad Bunny, who is American but refuses to speak English in his performances, or anybody else.
You know, there's so many things I'd like to get through before we even go on with this really quickly. One of the things she said, that's why Donald Trump was elected, right? Is that to preserve American culture? That's what really that's what a lot of people believe he was, going to do. He was there to preserve his culture. And I hate to say that a lot of the dog whistles and the people on the left who are always complaining about the fact that, what he's doing and he's making it okay to be xenophobic. And I would say, I don't know about that, because a lot of times the argument was this illegal Latino that is here that you would claim is taking away goods and services from Americans, from the veterans. And that was the whole thing, that supposedly the argument was about, we don't have enough to go around if we let so many people in. It's not about that. It's about exactly what she said. This one over here, this one over here, over there, that she exposed what a lot of people really thought Donald Trump was about, and that's preserving their white culture. So, fam, my question to you is, what is American culture? Can you rehash again? Because I think we spent the whole segment talking about it. The reason why we have a Greek restaurant or an Indian restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, the reason why the Statue of Liberty that's been standing there for so long saying, give us who you don't want, that is our culture. We are a mixture. We are a mixed bag of different ethnicities. The way my people came in, the Italians, the way your people came in Latin America. We are a melting pot. We are a mixed bag. That's what I thought we were supposed to be about. And if we evolve into something else that might not be the predominant white Christian race that Megyn Kelly is so afraid to lose, how is that going to really fucking hurt us? How is that going to really damage us? Isn't that going to be better? It was a middle finger in the face of those who don't speak Spanish. Well, maybe we should have Spanish in school. Isn't it beneficial? Wouldn't it be better for us as a society if we learned to speak more languages? If we actually traveled and went and saw a different culture? They don't want that. They don't give you enough money to pay your bills or to put enough food on the table. That means you have no money to leave the United States to go see what it's like out there. And that is by design. Because as long as there's a them over there and an us over here, the ruling class will keep us divided no matter what. And what Megyn Kelly is doing right there, and we should probably finish it up, right? It's quite sad. She's tapping into the most shallow, what's the word I'm looking for? The most shallow, just unanalytical, just fucking low fucking minded, low informed fucking mentality on the face of the earth. Let's just finish it up, and I'll let you go at it, fam.
You have to keep the Super Bowl, which is a quintessential American event. Football, that kind of football, is ours. They call it American football. And the halftime show and everything around it needs to stay quintessentially American. Not Spanish, not Muslim, not anything other than good old-fashioned American apple pie. There should be a meatloaf, maybe some fried chicken, and an English-speaking performer. That's what the Super Bowl should be.
There should be a meatloaf.
Meatloaf, it comes from Germany. Fried chicken by the slaves in the South, Black, African. What else? American football is a rugby redone. I mean, yeah, but she's
whatever
white
the case
American
may
and
be,
football.
we are a culmination of all these ethnicities,
That's
race.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
I mean, that's who we are as Americans. Why is that so bad? You know,
what she defines as American is her own concoction of what it is to be a white Christian American. I'm sorry, there's
but a
no
lot
other
of
way of
people
putting it,
share
right?
that concoction, fam. She's speaking for a lot of people who are fearful of what happened this week. And
Yeah, but you know why she's fearful? It's because they're in the minority. So the people that are against like welcoming other people and you know the America that it is today, where you grow up and you have kids that are, you know, look Asian, look Black, look Latino, look this, look, it doesn't matter. The mixed kids of all kinds now, they don't want that, and that comes from a very like, it's not just racist, it's a fearful supremacist kind of thing. And I have to say that is a supremacist kind of mentality, you know, where we have to keep this purity of what I perceive as being America. The good old days, the 1950s. Let's go back to the 1950s, the good old days for some people, where, you know, you have the father that can work one job and the mom stays at home, cooks for the kids, they go to school. That American dream with the white picket fence, that's what she's talking about. But that was only a reality during the 1950s for who? For who was that only a reality during the 1950s? It was not a reality for everybody. That was only the reality for. But that's what she's talking about. Yeah. That's what she's talking about.
Let me push back, though. That's the problem too, as well, with my culture, my people, and maybe some of your Latin American folks have been here for a while. Is that those values are all about economics? Where if you put your head down, you work hard, no matter what race or culture you're from, you can achieve more. You can get that house with the white picket fence. That was achievable, right? And that's why I think so many Italian Americans today are so against the immigrant coming in, yet they were handed that working economy and stuff like that. That's what the American values should be about. And if you're mad about that, don't be mad about the Latino people coming in. Be mad about your government who fucking ruined that for everybody, not the Latino guy. It's not the Latinos' fault for you not having a working economy and jobs. No. What did they do? They shipped out all your jobs all over the place. They refused to grow food here by buying up all the good land. They made it so that you have to be dependent on everybody else so they can make money off slave labor. If you're mad about the American values going away, be mad at the right fucking people, Megyn Kelly, because it ain't the Latino man. It's your fucking government. So stop playing their bullshit games, because when you play their bullshit games, you win nothing but bullshit prizes. So thank you for the bullshit, Megyn Kelly. Sorry, fam. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is about economics, right? But she's a figure that is largely popular on the right, that's made to get people very polarized, whether they're on the left and they hate what she has to say because they're so, you know, they are triggered by what she's saying because it does sound like outright racist and supremacist and all this, or whether they're on the right and they agree with her. Yes, our culture is being eroded by these immigrants that are coming in, these illegals, you know, these people, these Muslim terrorists, Hamas, you know, Jeffrey Epstein was Hamas. Like, I mean, this is where we're at now, where it's always going to be the other. But notice who the other always is, right? You can't get away from that. The other is always somebody south of the equator. It's not anybody. I mean, only for the liberals is it the Russians, right? Like, but usually it's somebody south of the equator. That's the other that gets to be blamed for all the shit that's going on. And Megyn Kelly just exemplifies that personality that's going to do that and bring that to the helm and put more fear into people and say, wow, she's right. These people, look, they have a halftime show now. They're speaking Spanish. What's next? Spanish is going to be the #1 language in this country. We're going to lose our American values. What they consider American values it's every day less and less what's prevalent, not because necessarily of others attacking it, but because of the actions that the United States government has taken, because of the very own, supremacy that exists, because of the very own actions of these people that turns a lot of people off. You're not going to get that mentality back. It's going to go to economics now, and I think that's what people are focused on, especially after the ICE situation, right? When American citizens are getting killed, a lot of people woke up after that, seeing like white American citizens get killed by ICE. What does that mean? Right. And so I think now they're working overtime to divide people up on race, on ethnicity, on culture, because they know that people are starting to understand here that they're being played. And Megyn Kelly, of course, is one of these people, because she's part of this class. She's not part of everybody else.
Yeah,
she's part of this class.
I think it's important because you mentioned something there, fam, and I'm, as soon as you said it, I kept putting my hands up because it's very important. Like you said, everybody south of the equator is the one they fear because that's who the conservatives told them to can fear, and the only liberals fear the Russians, right? Because that's where once again, you hit it on the spot. We fear, the majority of people in this country fear, I shouldn't say we because we're not part of it, they fear those who they are told to fear. They are confused about what is going on. The system is so complicated and it's so broke and it's so deep of what's happened. You have to go back years to even start looking at what the fucking problem is, that they're told to believe that this person is the enemy and that's who they believe is the enemy. People are very, very weak-minded, low-informed, and that's why we have this problem. That's why so many Democrats are actually pointing a finger at Russia. And if they would actually analyze what's going on, we've talked about this before. Putin kind of went on the heels. I thought a lot of hardliners pushed him, but he also went on the heels of oligarchs that kind of put him into power. But he became a nationalist of sorts, and I don't know if he's gotten permission from some of the oligarchs. As long as they've gotten him, I don't know the depths of what's going on with Russian economics and Russian culture and Russian government. But he went in and he became a nationalist. And there's a reason why he has a 70%. And I don't mean nationalism in the form of American nationalism, which is what Megyn Kelly's talking about. When you talk about Russian nationalism, it's about doing what's right in the world economy that benefits Russia most, right? Not giving up your resources. Like if we would have the same type of nationalism that Russia would have, where we keep our resources, not go and invade all these other countries, not spend billions of dollars on military bases, because that all bankrupted Russia, and they knew that, and they understood that. And I've always felt like Putin and the Russian Federation, when they say, oh, he wants to expand the Soviet Union, no, he doesn't. You got 11 time zones there, and he knows if you take a country or a part of it, you got to now manage it. That's extra work for them to do. Everything it seems like they do, and I'm not going to, once again, there's a lot of bullshit coming out, but he did it for the benefit of his own people. But yet people were told, this is your enemy. This is the guy who you need to hate. And they went along with it. That's something to be said. That's something to be looked upon. And that's something we need to break. But unfortunately, these situations like the Bad Bunny situation and the TPUSA, these are what put people back into their tribes. They retreat back to their corners. And that's the biggest problem with this situation right now. Not only is it a big distraction, it just puts people back in the team sports mentality because it was done at a team sports event. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So the last thing on the subject I want to point out is some of the other reactions about this, right? About this performance, hyper focusing on the anti-woke stuff. Like this, Bad Bunny is a demonic Marxist who has been granted the largest stage with the greatest audience in the middle of a Christian revival.
Oh my God, this idiot! You put the redheaded libertarian
war, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. What is?
Can I say something? I saw her in person. The redheaded libertarian. I saw her in person. I met her at the Libertarian Convention. She's not to be trusted. She's not to be trusted. She is 1,000%. She can't even look people in the eyes. She is 1,000% a fucking planted. She is definitely. I don't know if she's definitely working for the fucking divisive fucking rhetoric out there. She's not a libertarian. She's a Trump conservative. But when I saw her name, and I'm sorry I exploded, I met her in person. No, that girl is not to be trusted at all. It's obvious that she's an op or a useful idiot, either one.
Well, that's the thing. Like she's using the whole, this is all satanic and demonic. And a lot of that, this is why some of the stuff like that comes out of Russia lately tends to align with Trump, because they're very much pushing we're Christian this, we're Christian that. But again, like it's only a small percentage of the population that is actually religious, and less the youth. So when you overly try to push this whole agenda of like, is this everything's about Christianity, it just turns people off. Not everything's about Satanism and Christianity. I think what is about good and evil is the fact that we've allowed a genocide to continue, and none of these people have done anything about it. And the United States and Israel have been leading it. And now they want to do another genocide with Cuba and are pushing that. That's evil. That's satanic. if you want to talk about that. Not this whole bullshit virtue signaling of Christianity. We're a Christian nation. What Christian thing has the United States done in the last few years? Supporting Israel's genocide, bombing Iran, bombing Venezuela, strangling and starving Cubans. That's Christian to you? And then taking, these kids and people and putting them in these prisons and then killing people who are protesting. Like, how is that Christian? Like, what? So the other layer of this is the hypocrisy about what they consider Christian and pure and all this stuff is a gigantic lie. Everything they stand on is not, it's just hypocrisy and lies. None of it is real. You want to be a good Christian? Stop killing kids abroad. Stop bombing people abroad. Stop dividing families and putting people in jail without any sort of process to make this thing work. You want legal immigration? Make the legal process better. Make it easier to do. You want to stop people from coming in the country? Stop bombing their fucking countries. It's very simple. Why can't, and you want people to believe you're actual Christians? Act like them. Don't act like the complete opposite. And then when somebody performs a dance that you don't like and you call it satanic because you don't understand the cultural root of that, then you don't look like a complete idiot. I mean, this is just ridiculous now with the satanic. Everything's satanic. Right. What's satanic is the fact that all these kids and these women were abused, and you have people justifying it because and it's just the liberals doing it or it's just the right wing doing it. That's satanic. With the fact that none of these people are going to be held accountable in the Epstein files, that is evil. That means we're being ruled by evil right now.
And I think that what's also important is that, once again, manufacturing the consent to go into Latin America. These Latin America are socialist, Marxist countries. This is the Marxist demonic thing. They're trying to tie the two together and ignore everything that Fee just said. The things that they did in Gaza at the hands of the United States, what Israel did with American weapons, that is pure evil. That is satanic. What they are about to do to Cuba is evil, is pure satanic. And they try to convince you that it's necessary because they're rooting out all this evil by killing all these people, by killing all these women and children. Let's watch the video real quick because I think that the redheaded libertarian, who is definitely an op or definitely a fucking useful idiot, I think she's more of an op. She couldn't even look me in the eyes. You could tell she was avoiding stuff. Like you can tell these people when you see them in public, they hide. And unfortunately, I'm a poker player, so you can't hide from me. I can look into your soul. And you ain't going to hide shit. And I said that about her. And then her rhetoric wasn't libertarian rhetoric. She calls herself the redheaded libertarian. She's far from a libertarian. She's a conservative Trump supporter. And now she's trying to tie in Marxism to Satanism. Fam, even in the old scriptures, was there anything that Marxism and Satanism talked about together? Was there any type of connection and stuff? I know that people like to say that Marxist was a Satanist, like he was a Satan guy. And I'm like, okay, but that's not in his writings. He was pushing a fucking labor movement.
They're just not religious.
Yeah.
That's
Zero.
it.
That's it. Let's watch this video. Fam, I'm glad you picked this shit out. And she got caught being shared by Elon all the time. Elon was sharing her shit all the time. Go ahead.
Fans are reporting that they felt a demonic presence when attending Bad Bunny's recent concert. Fans even started to make it into a meme by taking videos saying that the concert just feels demonic, but it became extremely dark when this song Botanico came on, where there were masked demons dancing all over him and the concert turned all red. Even the music video to this song is extremely dark. It's this monster looking thing that creeps up into this woman's room.
Dracula.
And it actually ends up becoming Bad Bunny himself. Those who attended this concert are even advising people, if you're going to go see Bad Bunny's concert, then schedule your bathroom breaks whenever this song comes on. And at one point, those demons that were around him, you can't really see because the concert gets really dark, but they start grabbing and pulling on him like he's being sacrificed or something. If you've seen my old videos, you know that this is no surprise because he's been showing this symbolism for quite some time now, and it was only a matter of time until this started happening in real life in concert. You're looking at the man who had this.
I gotta say, so there's a video where this guy dressed like a lady, and that whole thing is basically a song, and I didn't even know that it was like this until recently. It's a song about women empowerment, is basically what it is.
Yeah.
When girls are at the club, they're always getting hit on, and so the whole song it's about, oh, I dance by myself, and I think it's with Becky G or one of them, and it's called Yo Perreo Sola, and she's just like dancing by herself, and he dressed like a woman to show like he basically, the whole video is him playing different characters. No, he's not trans or anything, but he just dressed like a woman. And like, here's the thing, again, why do we have to hyper focus on this shit? Like, it's one song of one thing. How do you claim that this is more satanic than what others in government right now have engaged in? This is just some guy who is an artist and he's singing. There are some weird shit that does happen with some of these people, like that, that we've seen in the Epstein files, which, by the way, Bad Bunny was not in the Epstein files. That we have seen, that is weird, like when they do some of these things. I mean, the Dolce, well, no, what is it? Not Balenciaga thing. That is 100% like very strange. And, you got to do your due diligence and look at this stuff. But when you have like some of these videos that are just like people taking artistry and making these videos, like not all of that is satanic. I mean, I've heard these people say that Taylor Swift's videos are satanic.
Yeah, no, I've heard
that girl is not. There's not a drop of anything edgy when it comes to Taylor Swift. She's not edgy at all. There's no Satanism in her music. Like I think this kind of puts us in this is on purpose to get people to be in this like, oh my gosh, this is out of our control. We're just being, controlled by these satanic pedophiles and blah blah blah. When you get into that realm where there's no logic, when there's no actual hope or belief or action taken or plan, that's how people get exploited. When you look at the Middle Ages and what they were referred to as the Dark Ages, a lot of people just started believing in a lot of things and they got manipulated that way because there was no planning. There was no way to execute things, to move people forward, to educate people. And when you just start saying things like, oh, this is satanic, this is this, there's no way to like actually have a discussion. It just becomes about the religious aspect of it on either end. So I think it's purposeful and I think it's manipulative.
I've seen these arguments before about Bad Bunny being Satanist music, being part of the whole situation, symbolism and stuff like that. I've seen it before. I don't pay too much attention to it too as well, because like you said, it gets so clouded and they're pushing everybody in that direction. But that was the first time I even saw it tied to Marxism. But yeah, there are people out there that claim that Marxist was a Satanist, whatever the fucking is, fam. And they're trying to mend that together. But the reason why she is promoted and hyped up is because it's going to manufacture more consent with war with Latin America. Their socialist, Marxist ideology in Nicaragua has to go. The socialist, Marxist ideology in Colombia and Gustavo Petro and his party has to be taken out. The socialist, Marxist ideology of Lula needs to go. I mean, all this stuff is going to come into fruition, and you're going to hear them say that, you don't have to like Marxism, but to sit there and twist it as if it's Satanism is kind of ridiculous. And like Fiorella said, everything we see going on, that is satanic to me. What's going on in Israel, that is satanic to me. In Gaza, in occupied Palestine, that is satanic. That is pure fucking evil. But yet you want to just ignore that and think it's okay. Please, give me your standard. It's standards. Where are your standards at, fam? Where's the passion at? Where's the fire? Standards. That's my Gordon Ramsay. I guess I can get better at it.
So, just quickly, because we've been kind of going on for a bit, we have a couple more things to talk about.
Yeah. Small things, but you can give us some light and information on this stuff. I think, fam, what you've been putting up, this next thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is important, guys, because fam fucking lays it out. News you only get here at the TruthWire, you don't get elsewhere. But go right ahead, fam.
So I was really pissed off because a lot of news agencies, Reuters, Bloomberg, reported that for the first time, Venezuela is sending oil to Israel, which You know, everybody reported on it. I think RT shared it, and a lot of people were you know, taking it as fact. But the thing is, a lot of these people aren't getting their sources from actual Venezuelans and actual Venezuelan people that are on the ground or in the government. And again, I'm not saying I trust any one government to give me, you know, straight up facts, but you've got to, like, you do your due diligence and actually look at things. And a lot of the narratives around Venezuela are being manipulated for a specific purpose of making feel people like everything is just falling apart, right? So that's not true. Venezuela did not ship oil to Israel. It's actually worse than that. So Caracas's oil, Venezuela's oil, is now being taken by the intermediaries, which are Vitol, the company that has Israeli interests, and Trafigura, and they then are able to decide who they want to sell it to. So they're basically stealing this stuff from Venezuela and they're giving it to Israel. And the reality is that means that the United States is now in control of this because they've been going around to these countries threatening them that they can't send oil to, for example, Cuba, right? And so the other thing is the optics of this looks very bad because how is it possible that Venezuelan oil ends up in the hands of Zionists before it ends up in the hands of Cubans who really need it, right? Like it's absolutely terrible that that's happening. It shows that Venezuela is trying to do the best they can, but they're alone. China, Russia didn't get involved. They weren't going to get involved. They're on their own and they're trying to figure out how to survive and how to maintain their country under their jurisdiction as much as possible while trying to get Nicolas Maduro back. And that's the reality people don't want to hear. Like, you know, oh, well, you know, Delcy Rodriguez sold out Maduro. Did she though? Did Maduro actually knew this was going to happen, laid out the plans and kind of, you know, they're doing what they can. What else is Venezuela supposed to do? What would you do in that position? Would you fight the United States with no air army? How would you possibly do that? What would that cause upon you? Because it's not about you or your ideals, it's about your people. And for me, you know, it's a hard question because I'm the kind of person that wouldn't just give up, you know, that would fight till the very end. And I think this is their way of doing that. Unfortunately, I think Venezuela, as it was before, is not going to be, unless there is something that really shakes up the entirety of Latin America, because they can't do it alone. They can't do it alone. You know, respecting the sovereignty of these countries is important, but that's not an excuse for other countries that are supposed to be taking on the hegemonic West to not involve themselves. If they actually wanted to take on the United States and form a bloc with these countries, whether it's Iran, Russia, China, Venezuela, Cuba, you know, then yeah, they would have a chance to be more forceful. But a country like Venezuela that was already on an economic stranglehold, that's already being attacked by the United States, whose president they kidnapped, is not going to be able to defend itself alone. It could defend itself on its land, but not when it comes to the military power, the United States. We spent trillions of dollars on our defense. Venezuela does not have that. So there's a lot of people that fail to understand the reality of things versus what they would want to happen. And unfortunately, like it's, you know, it's hard hitting. Like what's happening here, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It means that, you know, Venezuela is being like basically like a gun to their head, right? There are guns to their heads right now, in for a lack of a better term, to Mexico, to Venezuela, to Colombia, to anybody that's trying to help Cuba. And unfortunately, you know that that's happening because Israel is getting Venezuelan oil, and it really infuriates me. But we have to be accurate. We have to be clear how that's happening. Don't just say Venezuela is giving it. No, they're stealing it. They're once again stealing Venezuela's oil. They're manipulating things. They're threatening, they're blackmailing in order for this oil to go to the ones they want and to not go to the people who need it most. And that's what's happening. That's why accuracy matters in all of this.
Fam, do you think there's something to the point where my theory is that I've said this before on the show when we started talking about Epstein and some of the other situations, that the ruling class only lets you see what they want you to see. They only allow you to see what they want, right? And they're not going to release stuff out there. Do you think they're going over the top with blaming Israel for everything right now for a reason?
Yeah.
Because it does seem like there is this kind of like laser beam focus to blame Israel for everything. And you see a lot of conservative people out there going, this is what this was about Venezuela. Venezuela was all about Israel. It wasn't about the United States. It was all about Israel. Yet they want to ignore all the money the West makes on these situations and how much sovereignty they take away from a lot of these countries and grab themselves. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I would say that Western oligarchs make just as much money, if not more, than some of the bankers from Israel themselves. I don't know, but it does seem like they're going over the top, making sure that we believe that Israel is the major problem, not the West and its system. I don't know. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay.
Yeah, my headphones died. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. No. So I think there's like another layer to this where if we blame Israel only, then we are able to just focus on Israel. And we are able to put all the blame on Israel and the focus not on us. And that's what I think a lot of the, America First people want to do, because they want America to be untouched and they want America to be the good guys. Yeah.
They can't fathom the fact that it's the empire making these decisions. If they blame, what's going on? If they blame Israel for everything, it kind of takes a lot of the responsibilities and the accountability off the West, right? And that's the thing. Conservatives, who are supposed to be the party of individual responsibility, they want to take no responsibility for the foreign policy and what it brings us. They want to take no responsibility for allowing, the government to go over untouched, unhinged, and not check for so long. A lot of the reasons we're in this situation, a lot of people would say, is the fact that our fathers and our grandparents didn't keep the government in check. They went along with their lives and their pretty comfortable way of living, and everything got so far out of control that this is what we're left with right now. There's no accountability from them. They're blaming the immigrants right now, those older people and our parents and our grandparents and stuff. That's the crazy thing. And I see a lot of this right here. If they can blame Israel, to take any accountability off themselves, instead of saying what we do, Israel does. We work together in tandem. We're working hand in hand. And I think that's very important, fam.
And further beyond that, it's now an international class that is not just Zionism. It's a supremacy global class that is trying to take over and take control. And, where we are a nuisance as a people, that's what it is.
Yeah. Fam, let's get to the last part, which is, I believe, we're sitting in Latin America, right? So that's it from what's going on in Venezuela. So at the end of the day, we're not selling directly to Israel. It is kind of making a stop, and the United States is controlling. So you can kind of say it's the same type of actions almost, but it's important. Why is it important to lay out the fact that it's not?
Because what do you
ahead.
mean? It's not the same thing at all. Like
No.
Venezuela is not giving the oil to Israel. They're not saying, here, Israel, take our oil. The oil is being stolen and given by these intermediaries to whoever they want, including Israel.
Yeah.
So ultimately the result is the same, but the difference is how you position the narrative changes how people are talking about this.
Yeah. The reason why I asked how is it different and stuff, I mean, from the perspective of Israel, or those blaming Israel, Israel's going to force the United States to give them that oil via Venezuela, rather than Venezuela give it to them straight to them. Yeah, you kind of take some of the onuses off Venezuela, and you can't blame them. But if it hits the same mark and Israel is still pulling the strings in their mind, don't they kind of get the same result in a way?
Is Israel pulling the strings, or is the United States pulling the strings?
I think they're both pulling the
again.
strings. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wouldn't get anything if we didn't give it to them.
Yeah.
How would they get it?
Yeah. They wouldn't take Gaza and bomb it if we didn't give them the bombs. So there's I don't know. I just see a very big push for people to blame Israel, single them out, and blame Israel as the problem. As if we remove the Israel problem, the United States would be fine and go on its way.
Yeah.
All these outside forces.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the U.S. It's just Israel. No,
Yeah.
that's not the truth. That's not the truth. And I think way too many people online are kind of going in that direction because it does give the US a way out. It's a cop out for the United States.
Leave it
so
at
you
that.
You have the Petro thing, right?
Yeah, just two quick clips about Gustavo Petro. We have your breaking news on the Gustavo Petro. Go ahead and throw that up, Jayme. Let fam get into this. Gustavo Petro narrowly escapes assassination. Throw up the article.
So
Throw it up, Jayme.
Petro yesterday said he narrowly escaped an assassination attempt after his helicopter was forced to divert over the Caribbean. He said it happened for days. He had fears that it would be shot down. The elections in Colombia are in May of this year, the first round. So, but just so everybody knows, Petro is not running and he can't. So, and he doesn't plan on challenging this. So somebody else is going to take over. So Latin America is a very precarious situation right now because he has been kind of a nuisance for Donald Trump. In spite of some of the dumb things he sometimes says, he's been kind of a nuisance. He hasn't really allowed the U.S. to do whatever it wants as much as they wanted to. So it's interesting that this happened at that time. He blamed the cartels, but some people are saying maybe there's more to it than that. So we don't know. You have another clip from Option.
Yeah, we have him talking too. We have the translation up. Afshin Ratanzi reported on this too as well. Keep it low, Jayme, and I'll rate it as it's coming up. And take down the banner so I can see. Go ahead. I have to confess here to say that I'm coming to in 2 days, not in the arms of love, but escaping from being killed.
That's why I could not arrive 2 hours ago next night, because I could not land where I said I had to land, but not even where I had to land. They turned on the lights. I think the translation's bad.
Yeah.
Instead, in the morning, I didn't land where I was supposed to because I was afraid they wouldn't shoot at the helicopter. With my children, I also did what I know how to do. So we took to the open sea for 4 hours and I arrived where I wasn't supposed to. But I arrived and here I am. This translation's kind of off.
Yeah, it was kind of messed up. I'm sorry I didn't check that.
Like not the best translation. But yeah. Oh, he's still going. Or no, we already did it. We already translated.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay. So yeah, so he escaped death. We don't really know who was behind it. He's saying he's been persecuted for a few days. It's the cartels, but it's interesting because he's not going to be president anymore. So there might be another reason why they think he's going to be influential. There's something going on. Remember, he is being sanctioned by Donald Trump. So there's that. He wasn't in the Epstein files, Everybody's checking which world leader has been in the Epstein files. He hasn't been in the Epstein files, so.
Yeah, I mean, that right now I think, yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the Epstein files, the last thing I want to talk about, it wasn't even in a section, but I had to literally bring this up because, the defense of Chomsky has exposed a lot of people online. And, Michael Tracy has been one of those people that's been holding his shield and his sword like a white knight, defending not just Chomsky, but actually Epstein, which he takes it a step further. Calling the victims, saying the victims were fake, that they just got a lot of money, that they're not real. This is common language coming from Tracy. He is continuously, and you can go through his timeline. Anytime there's a woman, he's bashing the lady, no matter what. And I want people to hear what he said, because I think it's important people hear, how I think it's a slippery slope when you go into this territory. I know there's differences, but I think that what he's saying is insane. Yeah. And he's being defended. A lot of people are defending each other here and exposing themselves. So,
let's
take a look at what Tracy said.
No, I know the circumstances were distinct with Matt Gaetz. I was just noting that the
No, I know, but can you just answer what I asked
unusually
you?
high age of consent in Florida was a factor on which the potential but aborted prosecution of Matt Gaetz hinged. Whereas if he had gone north to Georgia, and it would have been much different because
right. But I'm asking about Epstein. Is it your understanding
listen, I'm not
that
an age of consent
is it your
guy,
understanding
really,
that
but it's just a legal
that
factor
the
here.
girl or girls with
No, I know the circumstances.
He said he was talking about Matt Gaetz's case, which he defended Matt Gaetz for. He was talking about how the difference between that in Florida, where you have a higher age of consent than in Georgia, and if you just went to Georgia, Matt Gaetz would have been fine. And then he says, I'm not an age of consent guy. So he's saying all of this to diminish the fact that these girls that were taken were like teenagers, anywhere from like 14 to 17 years old. And like some of them were, in the age of consent, and they could have consented, and they could have wanted this. That's where he's going with this. In defense, to diminish the fact that they were victims and basically say that Epstein or that what was being done isn't as big of a deal. He's talked against it being a Mossad operation, saying there's no evidence that this is anything tied to Israel or Mossad.
Yeah.
And he's diminished the credibility of the people, the witnesses, the victims. He's basically said that, there's nothing there. So my issue is, if this was his opinion just now and it was a case by case basis, I would have a different opinion of him. Maybe he's wrong on this, but it's consistent across the board. He consistently has to attack any victim of any sexual crime. And I just find it odd. And I find it odd that he's vocally saying that Israel has nothing to do with this, when Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of a major Mossad spy. Like, what are you talking about? When you have these associations with Lex Wexner, with all of these major Israeli influential, powerful people, Ehud Barak. I mean, it's just, how do you say that there's nothing Zionist about this? Are you being paid? That's the next question. Like, are you being paid? And, Tracy has associated himself with Glenn Greenwald, with the Gray Zone. And you have Aaron Mate pretty much doing a similar defense of Chomsky, although it's not as bad now by comparison to what Tracy's doing. But, it's just weird intellectualizing of something very plain and simply wrong. Like, you don't need to be a Harvard educated intellectual to understand that this is wrong and these people should be held accountable. It's not rocket science. You don't have to make it more complicated. This is a sex trafficking network of very powerful people who are protected, a protected elite class. They're not going to get held accountable. These girls spoke out for years. Epstein was convicted of this. It's not even he was convicted multiple times of multiple things related to prostitution, sex trafficking. There's ample evidence. And if you have the chance, go to the Jayme thing. I don't know if you guys have gone to that.
Yeah. Well,
and you can go through that and spend your time and see it for yourself.
So not enough people pay attention to the financial payouts from the non-criminal lawsuits where you had a lot of these banks pay out a ton of money for what happened with Epstein while he was connected to him. It was somewhere around 122 million for 135, victims. There are 135 victims that have gotten paid out huge sums of money in the non-criminal cases. I mean, you're just going to ignore that, and all those payouts were for sexual abuse. Now, if you want to say that, a lot of these things, and Megyn Kelly's done something like this before too. Megyn Kelly's said, like, Epstein liked the girls who were like 17 years old, they're just weeks away from being 18 of sorts, like the young ones, but they weren't really, it's not pedophilia. It's just, what I'm saying? They've said this shit before to try to muddy the waters and stuff. And it does seem like they're almost getting a paycheck from a Zionist entity. I mean, I don't know. Michael Tracy's a weird cat, guys. And, I don't know what's motivating him at times. I told Fiorella that I think it's kind of resentment he has for when he was in school as a kid and he couldn't sit at the pool table with the girls who said they wouldn't go to the prom with him. Like, it really does seem like there's an internal issue with this guy that he brings to the table at times. Right? I don't know what's motivating it. That's why I wouldn't just finish up on or land on, oh, he's getting paid by Zionists, because he's got some weird shit about him. And he's obviously, I don't know what he's trying to do at this point. You know, the whole situation when it came to Joe Biden, from going from, you know, once again, those are just accusations. His 14-year-old daughter said that his father, Joe Biden, showered with her. You know, I mean, there are countless videos where we see Joe Biden trying to sniff a baby's neck or an ear and stuff like that. You don't want to defend him, even if he was innocent in the situation that you claim he was, when it was Tara Reid, that she was crazy going over the top, whatever the case may be. No, I think we can all see with our eyes, and we all had enough evidence come across our face, that Joe Biden is a creep. Really something wrong with Joe Biden. So why would you defend that person? I believe it's something from meeting Mike Tracy, talking to Michael Tracy. It's something personal and internal, and why he's kind of purveying this weird message. You know, I don't know if he is getting paid off, because it definitely does seem like it's like some Zionist entity that's paying him off and stuff. But once again, Michael Tracy's a weird cat, and I would just kind of ignore this guy. I think he's done it to himself this time. I don't know how much more people are going to take him serious anymore. So,
well, he was also wrong about the beheaded baby story. He said the beheaded baby story was real, and how dare you could think that a network would make such accusations. And he was like, I've been on this network. I forget which network it was.
Yeah.
That said that. And so they would never lie about this. And he never actually backtracked. He said, okay, well, maybe blah, blah, blah. But he doesn't admit when he's wrong. He got that massively wrong. Anybody could have seen that story was fake. But he really died on that hill, right? Like when it came to that story. And again, he's wrong here. So it's not the first time. It's not, it's not the last time, I think. And yeah, like I just wanted to point that out. Like, this isn't something we're saying. He's doing this to himself. And, I think for a lot of us, especially, I think for a lot of female journalists and stuff, I've seen a lot of comments at Tracy coming from, because it's kind of, it does hit different when you're seeing like colleagues or people that you see, online, journalists try to defend the indefensible. And then, I don't know, it's weird, because it's a very real thing. Like it could happen to anybody. As and in Florida, of course, was the major area where all of this was happening. And the other thing that bothers me about the Epstein case was that these girls were particularly working class girls that were coming from a rough home, or homes where they weren't looked after, or they were not from good families that cared about them. And they were poor. They were like poor girls. And a lot of the major victims were like that. So they were specifically targeted by these elite pedos with a lot of weird freaking like shit and behavior and the sexual whatever desires that they had, and transhumanist stuff that's come out too with Gates and all this stuff. Like it's very much like what we've been talking about on the show for years. This transhumanist, that is satanic, that is evil, that is what we're talking about here. Not about all this other bullshit distraction, but that in itself.
Yeah.
Why is there even a debate about sex trafficking minors, or about sex trafficking period? Why do we even have to make this a debate? It should just be like, there's no debate. This is a wrong thing. There's no debate. You shouldn't defend Jeffrey Epstein. And after everything that's happened, half of me thinks that Jeffrey Epstein is still alive and a kicking in Israel somewhere, because, don't put it past them. I don't put it past them anymore with all this shit.
Do you think the Epstein scandal is going to go away? It does seem like a lot of people in the conservative movement will not let this die. This is the thing that kind of broke the camel's back, I think, when it came to a lot of conservatives out there, a lot of, what do you call them? Independent, populist right, Trump people, patriots and stuff. Do you think this is going to go away? Or do you think this is like, are they going to be able to practice with other things?
Right?
What's that?
They want to make it go away. They said they're done with it. They're done with it. They wanted to give people something, so people stop talking about it. But I think in the eyes of a lot of people that actually see this for what it is, it's not going to go away. I think it's just going to add to all of the things that are adding onto the U.S., right? All of the increasingly shitty things that are happening in the United States, where people are like, I got to get the fuck out of here. You know how many times I hear that from people now in the U.S. I want to get out of here. I don't want to live there. How are we going to retire in the U.S.? How is there going to be any Social Security left? Is there going to be anything left? No, there's going to be nothing left. Yeah. There's going to be like it's you know, you talk about shithole third world countries. The reason the United States has anything is because they've taken it from everybody else. And you know, there is some organizational effort. There's some things that we do well that, you know, that I see that in other countries they may lack, but that's also because we've had the resources and we've built the resources from everybody else. And so now we live in a world where eventually everything that our country has exported and ever done is going to come back at us. And unfortunately, people are not ready for that. I think if you've never left the United States and seen how other people live and seen another way of life, I think it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these people to really see what's actually coming. And I think this year is going to be a hell of a year. I think the last 2 years I thought, you know, were terrible and have been absolutely terrible. I think this year is going to take the fucking cake. You know,
I mean, it's headed that way. I mean, and on top of it, with Donald Trump, the technocrats have increased their security state, their spying abilities 20-fold. This can never be done under Joe Biden.
And gotten it cheered on by the people who were supposed to be against it.
Laura Loomer telling they should send Palantir to the border and stuff, all that stupid shit. Like, people got behind this and they're still getting behind this. You know, it had Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom, whoever token Democrat got in, and they started, you know, getting contracts with Palantir and taking the same type of spyware that was used in Israel, you know, in Gaza, over here, and just changing the name and geofencing and geomapping everything, putting us all on the grid, they would have lost their very own minds. But now they're okay with it. They are applauding it, fam. And that's something that's really scary. Like, so people say, well, you know, at least that with Donald Trump, our children aren't going to have parts chopped off for them, or taking, you know, puberty blockers and whatnot. I said, yeah, but now they're going to get a microchip in their head twice as fast. So what do you got to say about that? You know what I'm saying? It's like you're getting rid of Peter to pay Paul. It's that same kind of fucking mentality. And this is done by design. And that's why I think, fam, we're going to have, you know, we had Trump, Republican, Biden, Democrat, Trump, Republican. We're going to have a Democrat, because right now things are so crazy radical and spinning this way that the other side will be able to get stuff put in that the other side couldn't. And they're going to go back and forth on this left and right. And that's what's happening right now. And the technocrats are really, really taking over in this country. That's who's really running the shot.
Yeah. Neo-feudalist technocrats that have a tangent for pedophilia. Like, wonderful. Yeah.
Anyways, guys, that's it for today. We want to thank you all for joining into the TruthWire. Remember, all the links down below to help us out. I want to thank Jayme CheeseSlice on the 1s and 2s. That's it for today. We'll be back on Friday. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Epstein there. I have my show today at 4 o'clock drive time. We're going to be talking about a lot of the stuff we talked about here, but hearing from the New Yorkers out in the street what they think about what's going on. And then, of course, I'm going to be on Crosstalk tomorrow, which will probably be shown a couple days later. Fam, you got anything coming out with Vanessa Beeley?
No, but I have some stuff coming out with myself. Be sure to watch the latest thing I have there with Vanessa, because I do reference our Epstein work, ties to Mossad from 7 years ago. So yeah, after that is when we started getting, you know, they put a target on our backs there.
Yeah, no shit. Fam, I'm going to close out the show. We're going to put up a Give, Send, Go once Fam approves it about going to elections, because we're going to need help. There's a lot of elections out there. A lot is at stake. And as we know, the anti-Latino mentality that we saw with the Bad Bunny is going to manifest itself in more regime change in Latin America. So we got to get to these countries to give you because nobody's going to do this, fam, if we don't do this, right? Who else does this type of work? We got to get out there and show you not only the validity and the integrity or lack of integrity in these elections, but what is also going on, because not only are we there to see the elections, we're also there to speak to the people, and we do a good job of it. And we speak to cab drivers, Uber drivers, waiters, bartenders, everything. So we're going to get out a Give, Send, Go pretty soon in which you guys can help us out. And we'll get that rocking. Fam, I'm going to end the show by playing my Modern Times Cafe video, if that's okay. The one that, thank God for Sovereign Media. and my good friend Ahmed Cabello and Camila Escalante. This is what I experienced in a diner in Minnesota that was no longer charging anything. They were taking donations only. Therefore, they can unplug from having their tax money go to fund the armed insurrection by the ICE agents on the street. Anything else to say, fam, before we get on out of here?
No, that's it, guys. See you Friday.
You got it, guys. We love y'all. Jayme, you can take me off the screen. Me and Fee off the screen. Truth out. Modern Times has been a hub for Minneapolis through many national events. It's just blocks away from the sites of several high-profile incidents over the past few years, including the deaths of George Floyd, Renee Good, and Alex Preddy. Owner Dylan Alverson says the idea is simple. By operating on donations and not generating sales tax, the cafe won't be contributing to what he calls the armed occupation of the city. Alverson says it's a reflection of the city and the country that, in his words, is in chaos and local business must adapt.
People are hiding, people are living under trauma, people can't afford to eat at restaurants even before this. And it was something that I wanted to provide for anyone in the city right now, whether their economic status or, I guess, time management, people out patrolling blocks and helping their neighbors and all these things. People forget to eat. I forget to eat.
Now, look at this pie over here. Look how big this is. This is like you get this at grandma's house. This is beautiful. I'm going to take a bite of this. It's focaccia style. You got like a sweet tomato sauce. I can say, you using San Marzano tomatoes over here? Yeah. What kind of cheese? Is this grande mozzarella or no?
This is actually a local provolone.
I love provolone. It's sharper. This is my style. I'm going to be hanging out at this cafe. So why did you decide to exclude federal agents from the free menu?
They're perpetrating violence on our community. They're killing our neighbors, our customers, our friends. I've witnessed firsthand their brutality. I've been tear gassed several times last week. My wife was shot in the face with a pepper ball standing on Nicollet Avenue. I guess if there's anyone in this neighborhood that we hear about that's committing crimes against people or terrorizing people, I'm not going to serve them.
Regular patrons said they're inspired by the new approach, with some already leaving donations on Venmo or in person, showing solidarity with the restaurant and the community.
They are very clear about not accepting ICE in this cafe, and that in itself is political. I think it's a community effort because they're offering free food when they do not have to. And there was no guarantee that they were going to make that money back throughout donations. But not only are they in some way relying on their community, they put a lot of faith in their community, and they're putting in a lot of love out there.
Just the amount of love and support we've received over the last couple of days has been quite amazing. Like, I'm getting DMs from people over in like Paris, France, that are doing like a pop-up for us. Like, they're donating like all of their proceeds from the entire night to us, and it's like, that's like amazing.
For now, Postmodern Times is open daily from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., hoping to make a statement about community, safety, and resistance in a town that has become the epicenter for all the protests nationally.